This is In Touch with Terri, a power-packed podcast for the medical aesthetics industry.
I just discovered your podcast, and I feel like I've hit a gold mine.
This is someone who's got a lot of knowledge. She's been there, done that.
Terri Ross is a former Fortune 500 executive, international speaker, founder and co-CEO of Apex Platform, and Terri Ross Consulting.
Just listening to her energy and her passion and just how hardcore she is.
Her knowledge of the industry and just her connections in general are phenomenal.
In Touch with Terri will bring you solutions to increase operational and employee efficiency and practice profitability. Plus, features some of the top industry experts as guests.
The Apex team literally changed the game for us.
Terri, your courses and your podcast are just so helpful.
She made me feel like I could do this.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go!
Now, here's Terri.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of In Touch with Terri. Thank you always so much for being here with me and all of the positive feedback that you guys always give about our guests and the topics of our episodes. As you guys know, this podcast is always for you. I'm really excited today to sit down with somebody who's become a very good friend of mine. Badass girl boss, a brilliant businesswoman, Nicole Gregory. I want to talk a little bit about her story because I think it's pretty fascinating. As you guys all know, and I just came off the last boot camp of the year in Miami, where there was huge attendance. And, there's been a lot of talk, as you guys know. There's probably not a day that goes by that I don't get asked a question about the recession and what's going to happen, and private equity coming into the space and just swooping up all these businesses. And Nicole and I have really become such good friends, but I want to the impetus of this podcast is, number one, a little bit about her story, because I think there are many of you that listen to this podcast that are asking yourself, what's next? Like, what's next for me? How do I prepare 2023? Is my business recession proof? And if I want to sell, what does that look like? And a little bit about the whole MSO consolidation market, because I think it's really confusing. But before we get into that, so please stay tuned. If that's you, if any of those things resonated with you, you're not going to want to miss the episode, because we have an expert here today. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about Nicole, and then I'd like her to talk a little bit about herself. But Nicole, thank you, honey, so much for being with me today. I'm so happy to have you.
Thank you. I'm always excited just to be with you. Your energy is amazing, and you're a Michigander, so I love that. We have a lot of the similar roots, so conversation never stops when we're talking. I love it.
Scrappy girls. I love it. But you guys, Nicole is the CEO of Urban U, which is a multi-location medical spa in Michigan, as you just heard. And she's also built an e-commerce site called Urban U for Me. As I mentioned, she's become a dear friend, and I'm going to share with you how we met. But she's also really become sort of this girl boss businesswoman in the medical spa industry as an expert. But her background comes from being an entrepreneur in technology and marketing and real estate. And she has really served as a high-level executive for several Fortune 500 companies. What I think is so cool, you guys, is that I always talk about there's no glass ceiling of education. And I met Nicole, when was it, honey? Was it about 4 years ago?
It was about 4 years ago. Yes. Yeah. We had one location, I think, at that point.
So I met Nicole. So think about this, guys. She had one location in the Midwest. And when I read Nicole's bio, I'm like, God, why is she calling me? She knows how to do this. And she was brilliant when it can't come to the numbers. And you guys know, I'm a big fan. We talk a lot about the data. The data tells the story. But you guys also hear me talking about most people, sadly, they're not taught. They're not trained on industry benchmarks, or again, some of the fundamental things that we should know from a training foundation, and then from the data, and then what do I do with the data? And I remember Nicole retained us to help with her pro-formas at the time to really make sure she got on the path of success. Was that fair to say, Nicole? Like, why?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'd love for people to know why you reached out as it relates to when we get into your growth.
Well, first of all, the work you're doing now is super important, obviously, helping people build the benchmarks to their own platform, whether it's one business or multiple locations. And that's exactly what you did. The industry it's been around for a long time, but just starting to explode. And I knew we were on a really good track, but so I think we must have met at one of the Amspas. And then I said, come on in, tell me what you think. And you helped us build some benchmarks that we hadn't thought about before. I've been in lots of different industries doing similar stuff, looking for gaps in a market, seeing where the gap is and looking how to fill that. And this was a new gap. I didn't know anything about it. And I knew you did. So having you come in was really amazing, helped us look at the right benchmarks and then be able to move forward from there to multiple locations.
So tell us, Nicole, thank you. And again, I'm so blessed to have had the opportunity to work with you. And then my God, how many locations do you have now?
Well, right now we have 3 locations and our e-commerce site. We're in the middle of a 3-location acquisition ourselves, a consolidation. So it's an exciting time to be in this industry. I mean, I know, as you said, what's the next step for everyone? There's, so much fragmentation going on with the industry. There's the single shingles, there's the multiple locations. And like you said, we have these recessionary worries going on as well. So there's a lot of confusion for med spa owners as to what they need to be doing to get themselves set up for success. Do you consolidate with a lot of the private equity money that's coming in? Do you just try to keep as a single shingle and moving forward the way you are? For us, we've looked at it and said, we've hit a lot of our benchmarks year over year. We continue to grow. This year's been a little bit different, but we're about 40% year over year growth every year. Amazing. Our EBITDA is up there, which is what you want to see when you're looking at some of these private equity opportunities in the market. But I think what is interesting, from a growth standpoint is, when do you open a new location? When do you consolidate with someone? When do you look at acquisitions? And I think that is where you come in really successfully. And you were really helpful in us getting to those thought processes.
Nicole, I love that. But let's go back a little bit, because I think the context of your story. So number one, you were Fortune 500 executive. Mm-hmm. When we talk about what you're passionate about, which is really empowering women, encouraging women, but finding a need to fill the gap. How did you make the transition to get into aesthetics?
Well, I've been a user of the services, lived in California for 15 years. And so using the services out there was pretty every day. Coming back to the Michigan area, the Midwest area, it was a lot more conservative. So we just weren't seeing, what we were seeing opportunities really with a super high-end plastic surgeon or low-end, meaning someone was doing it in the back room. So there wasn't a lot of what I like to call street-level opportunities for people to walk in and feel like they had a place to go to. And that was really where we saw the gap. And we said, these services are really, they're very high end, but I think they can also go down into, let's look at millennials at that point, right? Millennials 5 years ago were just getting going. And now we're really bringing on a strong men guest list, which we love. And then just all the diversity that's in the market space too, just looking at that. So when we looked at the opportunity, we said, if we're street level, we can bring in all of these opportunities and empower people, right, to feel their best self. And that's what our business is really about, is confidence and empowerment.
So where in the Midwest specifically, so everybody has an idea kind of where your venue is located?
We're in Michigan, Grand Rapids area, and then we also have locations over in the Detroit area. So.
Okay, amazing. So you talked a lot about consistency, having 40% growth, your EBITDA percentages. I think this is also new for people. I get asked it all the time. What should it be? What should my profit margins be? Since you now are acquiring, that's a big deal. I mean, you come from 4 years ago. How long have you had Urban now?
5 years.
5 years. In 5 years, that's pretty exponential growth to be able to talk about and still have those percentages growing at that rate, let alone acquiring other places. What do you think makes you different? What have you done different? What kind of a leader are you? And I think I'm asking specifically because it's an area that we don't talk about a lot, but an area where we want to build a culture of trust and respect and camaraderie, where everybody understands the vision and the mission. And they're not just words. What are the pillars that businesses in this space, where it is a commodity? I mean, it really, really is. We can all go anywhere to get these things done. Why would I come to you? So what have you done in your business model to be different that has allowed you this growth?
Well, when we looked at the gap, we looked at the street level opportunity. we looked at the opportunity to empower people, which are our guests, but also our employees. And when you look at that opportunity to empower your employees, it changes, because now you're not just looking at revenue, you're looking at culture. You're looking at building a culture that feels like you will have a vested interest in them. And so we've spent a lot of time on, it's quote unquote your business, right? This is your business. The more you grow, the more we grow. So how can we train you? How can we get you to your next level? So those type of empowerment conversations we have on a monthly basis with every employee. And it's important because you want to be in step with them. And we've seen our employees, someone who was living with a grandma, moved to her own place, to she's bought her own condo, others who are, had Ubers, they were driving to work and now they have their own cars. We've helped people purchase, homes and cottages. Like, it's actually really exciting when you see, when I say people, it's 99% female. And it's interesting because this industry is female, which is a primary caretaker, whether it's helping grandma or it's their kids or whatever it might be. And so how do you allow them and their little bit in their business, I don't want to say little because some of them are really big, to have flexibility in their time, mobility, so they can maybe go between locations, and then income ability. So they can scale the income ability up and down as much as they want. So you asked what our differentiator was. We took marketing and technology and wrapped the business around it. So the center of who we are is the empowerment. That's like the core. And then around that is the marketing and technology. And then around that is the business. So when we look at it that way, our differentiator is, we have a lot of businesses do have apps, but we look at, how do we, for example, in our apps right now, we're looking at gamification. How do we get our guests to not only just call in or set an appointment when they're with us, but actually use the Urban U app for a resource? And then as well, when we have promotions, how do you kind of gamify that? How do you allow your guests to look for this app consistently? They know this is the place to go. So that's what we do with our marketing, right? And our technology combined. So those are our key differentiators, I would say.
I want to repeat that back. And I know, God, there's so much we could talk about. I could break apart empowerment on its own, but if we can talk about those three things in a little bit more detail, because I think it's very critical. When you say empowerment, there's oftentimes people will be like, well, it's just a front desk, or it's just a patient care coordinator, or it's just a provider, or it's just a manager. And I don't look at it that way. And I know you don't either. And I think what I believe that you've done and what I hear you saying is that you empower women or men in these positions, that there is a career path. And they have to genuinely buy into that. You're just not a front desk. I mean, my God, I think it's one of the most critical roles in the whole company.
It is.
And that if you believe in this and you understand what your job functions are and how you can convert the patient, right? So there's KPIs tied to all of these roles, by the way, that you do this and you can achieve this and earn this. And so how do you, I guess, yes, it sounds like you believe in that.
No, I believe in all that. And I'll just even use your example of front desk. We don't call them front desk because the guest experience coordinators, GECs, because they're in charge of that first experience, whether it's on the phone or they're coming through the door. So when they buy into that, the accountability really rises up.
And how do you, I assume then, how you succeeded in this is that it's your philosophy to run as an owner. And that number one, your onboarding process is pretty critical, that they understand that it's not a job, I like to say, but that they do have a career opportunity path within your organization.
Yeah. So I'll tell you, so we talked about marketing and technology. We spend just as much time marketing to our internal guests, which are our employees and contractors, as we do externally. So we have lots of resources that do that. But what we've done over the last 2 years is we've created best-in-class technology or processes, let's say, because there's a lot. Okay, so there's a lot of businesses out there as you are working with your business and your technology, which is amazing. As we started to grow, we said, well, what are these resources, best-in-class resources that we can pull into our business to engage with our guests, engage with our employees, to engage with our back office? So for us, we've taken the best-in-class software that we have partnered with. And then in there, we've also worked on the best-in-class processes. So when we look at our technology, we're always saying, is this some of the best technology out there for software, right? but then now the process that goes into it. So you talk about training. We have a whole Urban U Academy. Our academy is from the day one they come in. Everyone kind of starts out with culture, vision. I get to talk to all the different cohorts and tell them about what we're doing and how important they are. And then we work through some basics, and then they split off into multiple different areas, whether they're guest experience, a medical provider, an esthetician. So that's a simple example of best in class software that we've brought in so we can train everyone the same.
Okay, when you say that you combined, and I love it, marketing and technology, so everyone's on the same page, other than your university. And then when you say software, do you mean your practice management software that you use, or are you talking about another platform that they're getting all of these tools in?
Yep. So there's multiple platforms. Yep. So one is, let's say we use Zenoti as our main platform for POS, but then there's multiple other platforms that make up this suite of best in class.
So it really sounds like you are taking an opportunity, which I love, that most to leverage the tools that you have to fit your team and your resources, right? To get you the best output, whether it's on the client side or your internal team side.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly. And as we're talking about sort of recessionary, like what's coming up, right? I feel this industry that has grown so fast, and you've seen it grow. You've been in it for a long time, and you've seen it just really skyrocket over the last couple of years. I feel because of the recessionary climate that we're in, I do believe there is a huge opportunity for businesses to rethink the way that they're working. So if you're a single shingle or even multiple locations, are you doing the best you possibly can be doing? So with our MSO, with those best in class softwares, we are now allowing others to come in and partner with us in that.
Okay, that's huge. And I wanted to wait a minute to get to this hot point that Nicole just brought up. Why don't we take a minute? People don't even, right? They get confused, or they ask, like, what is an MSO? What does an MSO do? So if you could give a little bit of background and definition of that, and then what does that mean for people, right? What does that mean for my tribe, any listeners on here that might be in this single shingle? I wanted a different opportunity. I'd like to work in a cohort with other people. What does that mean? What does that mean? And what's in it for them?
So MSO is a big word out there, right? It can be confusing, but MSO is a managed service organization. So just as I was saying, we have all of these software opportunities for people to choose which ones might work or might not work for their business, but they can come into that MSO and now run more efficiently with their business. That doesn't mean it doesn't conflict with anything obviously you're doing. Hey, here are the best benchmarks, and they can still have that software, right?
Yeah.
But at the same point, they might not have an academy. They might not have ways to engage on kind of an intranet opportunity. So we show them how to do that on best practices. So that's what the MSO really allows someone to do. Someone who's out there doing the work, maybe working behind the chair, I like to call it, still injecting, but also doing, all of the billing, all of the other things. Like, wait, I've got a life too. And how do I manage all of that? So we help them manage that so they can live a life.
And I assume then, is there buying power then? How does that work, right? Would they get any greater discounts or no?
Yeah, so MSO, if you are a part of the MSO and there's an acquisition part of that, which we are looking at that. So people can come into it and just pay a fee to say, take over my accounting, take over my marketing, help me train people consistently, right? So we can do that. If they decide that I'm kind of ready to be more of a stronger partner with Urban U, we have looked at acquisitions, which we're doing right now. And when they come into that fold of Urban U, absolutely the buying power is there. We're a national account with multiple different vendors. So it allows them to have the same discounts, which obviously then their revenues go up.
That's exciting. I mean, and I think, was this something that first of all, I mean, did you dream that you would kind of be in this place in just 5 years? And I mean,
it's great. Well, here's the one thing I would say, Terri, is like you. I mean, this industry, it's a little bit maddening. I don't know about you. It's like, wait a second, over here, over there, what's really going on? So I do say this a lot to people: is stay in your lane. Stay in your lane and what's really important to you. When we're talking to people about MSO or acquisitions and partnerships, what is important to you? Because if important to you is running a business and doing what you're doing now, then you should continue doing that. But if you're looking for some type of relief or some type of, and I feel the same way. So, doing as long as we've been doing it, since we've created these opportunities, this platform, if we can help people and empower them to have their best life. So it goes back to our core value of who we are. I truly believe this acquisition we're doing really shortly here it's going to be life changing for the owners of that company, because they have had zero time to do the things they really want to do.
I love that. And you know how much I feel like even on stage this past weekend, at the last Amspa boot camp, it's like you can get teary-eyed so quickly about people that need help and don't know where to go and they're struggling. And there's so many people in that same position. Can you talk a little bit about, if you're the one doing the acquiring now, what kind of percentages and EBITDA, like, are you looking at distressed? Are you looking at successful business? What are some of the things that you might look for? Because again, if we talked about this podcast is really about change and what does that look like in consolidation and where are people going to go? What are they going to do? What are the options? What are some of the things you could give advice that people should be thinking about or considering, or the things that you look at?
Well, I think I'll step back from that just for 1 second. And in regards to, you get asked this all the time, you said, in regards to the recessionary, like what's going to happen? Like your thoughts on that are probably, let's, build a strong business and go through it, right? Just things come at you. You've got to just continue to figure it out. Some people are saying, I'm just not ready for that. So if you're looking at purchasing a business, there's so many ways to do that. Acquisition, partnership, MSO, straight fee kind of stuff. So we have a lot of flexibility in our models that can work for anyone in multiple ways. This industry, everyone wants really high EBITDAs. It's hard unless you're on a national contract. And anyone who tells you less than that, it's really, really hard. So if you want to have higher profitability in your business and you want to have more time with your family, kids, whatever it might be, right? Whatever's important to you, you've got to look and say, what do I need to change here? What are those things I need to change? And then we talk through it with them in regards to, here are a couple of options, right? There's 3 or 4 different options we can look at. So we've looked at some opportunities that probably won't do anything until 2023, but we're really just saying, hey, you have a huge membership model. Let us help you with that. And for that return, you're going to get a percentage of the business. So, so they can now buy into even the MSO. So there are several different ways to make it run. But I think the reality is we've talked about this before. There's a lot of private equity in this industry coming in. And what I have learned about private equity, I've learned about there's search firms out there, so many different opportunities, but they want a percentage of your business.
Yeah.
And they want you to still work it. And they're going to give you some money, but they're going to give you still all the flexibility that you need, right? And so we'll go back to that flexibility, mobility, income ability. That's what we have found when we are having conversations with owners in regards to our MSO. It's almost a SaaS, if you think of it that way. We've offered all these, best-in-class software. The SaaS allows us to give them some flexibility with it.
I love that. For people that don't know SaaS, it's software as a service. So, oh my God, Nicole, this has been so amazing with so much valuable information.
So much information.
But what I love is that I think you gave away so many great tips, why you're super successful. Again, what you believe in. And I love the empowerment, the marketing and technology, the apps and gamification. I think you're almost taking this Medspa space to another level. Even when I'm always thinking about they're always so worried about the new thing versus retention and nurturing. You know what I mean? And so I think that that's what you've been able to do. So I just want to thank you, Nicole, so much for the opportunity for you to be on this podcast with us today to share with the tribe and the audience your successes. How can people, I think you bring a lot to the table, and I think there'd be a lot of people that are interested in what you offer. How can people find you, reach out to you?
They can always email me directly if they're interested in talking more. It's Nicole, Nicole, at theurbanu.com. And they can go to our socials. All the handles are The Urban You. So yes, thank you, Terri. Appreciate your time.
Honey, you are so welcome, you guys. This was an amazing podcast. Please listen to it again. I always thank you so much for joining this episode of In Touch with Terri. We are almost wrapping up at the end of the year. I cannot believe it, but Nicole, thank you. Please don't hesitate to reach out to Nicole. Reach out to me. You guys know where to find me. Ding me, ping me, leave a message. But if this resonated with you at all, and if this is you and you are like in this place of transition or struggle or uncertainty, and you need to grow and you want to go into next year, or you're by yourself and like Nicole said it, you want a little relief, please, again, contact me, contact her. I always say, keep your options open. Learning is the best thing we can do so you guys know your possibilities. But with that being said, I'm going to end this episode. Nicole, thank you again so much. My dear friend, so proud of you and love you guys. See you on the next episode of In Touch with Terri. Ciao.
Thanks for listening to In Touch with Terri. We invite you to schedule a discovery call with our Apex team. The link to apexplatform.com can be found in the show notes. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of In Touch with Terri.